The following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
We will call to order our July 20th Cary Planning and Zoning Board meeting, and we will begin by adopting our agenda. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda? If not, can we have a motion to adopt?
I'll move to adopt.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And then we need to approve our June 15th regular meeting minutes. Do we have any adjustments to those minutes? If not, can I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion, we adopt the minutes.
We have a motion to adopt. Do we have a second?
Second it.
We have a second, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. We're on a roll here, guys. And I think we have one public hearing tonight, so I'm going to lay down a couple of the process rules that we have for those public hearings. We're going to begin with a staff presentation to the podium to my left, which is to your right. After that presentation, I'm going to open the public hearing, and the first speaker at the public hearing is going to be the applicant, if they choose to speak. They get 10 minutes to address us, and when they're they've completed their comments, we will then have entertain comments from others who are interested in addressing the case. Each speaker gets 5 minutes to speak. You'll notice there's a little black box on the podium to my right, to your left. When you begin, that box will have a green light on it. After 4.5 minutes, the green light will turn yellow or amber, depending upon how your eyes see. And then at 5 minutes, it's going to turn red. When it turns red, I'm going to ask you to conclude your remarks to be fair to everyone on the schedule. I'm going to ask if we have multiple people here addressing the same point of view, that maybe you elect a spokesman. This is a business meeting, so I ask you not to respond. And you should be aware of the fact that this is our chance to listen to you, so we will not interact with any of those speakers. That said, we will begin with our first case, which I believe is 15 CPA 02 MS Holding Company, LLC. Ms. Chandler.
Thank you. Good evening. This case is a comprehensive plan amendment request for a little over 5 acres in North Cary. The subject property is right on the line with Cary and Morrisville, and it's on the north side of Chapel Hill Road, fairly close to the intersection of Chapel Hill and Cary Parkway. Notification of this plan amendment request was sent to properties shown in yellow on this map. And this slide shows stream buffers and floodways around the subject property. And as far as the Parks and Recreation and Cultural Resources Facilities Master Plan, there is a proposed street side trail on the south end of the property. As per our current comprehensive transportation plan, Chapel Hill Road is a major thoroughfare, so is Cary Parkway. Wilson Road is shown as a proposed collector road. However, we're going through the Imagine Cary process right now to update the Cary Community Plan, and a draft of that will be presented to council at a work session in October, and staff is looking at taking this road off of the comprehensive transportation plan because it is not shown in the Morrisville plan. There's a future C-Tran route shown on Cary Parkway near the subject property. As per the Town of Cary land use plan, the current land use designation is low-density residential. That is 1 to 3 units per acre. And the applicant proposes to change the land use designation to medium-density residential. On May 21st, there was a public hearing at Town Council. 2 people spoke. First was an attorney for the adjacent property owner who stated opposition to the comprehensive plan amendment request. She noted, however, that the property owner will continue to work with the applicant. And a representative from St. Pacific Homes spoke next, and he said he would like to continue to work with the adjacent neighbors as well. As per the land development ordinance, there are 4 criteria to consider when determining whether or not a comprehensive plan amendment is necessary. Staff believes the 3rd item, a change in town policies, objectives, principles, or standards governing development, meets the test. This area has changed since the 1996 land use plan, and our plan in 1996 did not predict the intensity or density of Park West Village and some of the residential development in the area. So staff believes that medium-density residential development would create a reasonable transition from the subject property to Chapel Hill Road and adjacent development in Morrisville to residential development in Cary. So staff does recommend approval of this comprehensive plan amendment request. This time, the applicant may come forward and speak.
So I'm going to, at this point, open the public hearing, and we're going to invite our applicant to address us, please.
Thank you.
Glenda Top with Glenda Top and Associates, and if I was different, I could probably say almost nothing, but I will be less than 10 minutes. Because I always like to say a little something. So thank you for the opportunity to present this before you tonight. I'm here tonight representing the property owners, and they have owned the property. It's been in their family for over 60 years. As staff pointed out, the request is to go from low density to medium density residential. This is the first change in this area from the original 1996 land use plan that was adopted. Major changes have occurred in the area, particularly with the Park West Village Shopping Center. The intersection in Morrisville has become a major node with the non-residential development that is really on all 4 corners, including the senior living facility. Medium density allows up to 8 units per acre. I know we're not doing the zoning case, but for those that were at the public hearing, who saw the public hearing, a condition was added at the public hearing limiting the number of units to 22, which makes this density by zoning condition 4.34 units per acre. So it's well within the medium density category. Also, the use proposed is single family detached, and with the density and use proposed, we feel that this is an acceptable land use change for this area. Also want to point out that Chapel Hill is currently a 2-lane road. Its plans are for a 6-lane divided landscape median. This has also had an impact on the area, which is another justification from going from low to medium density. And looking at the comprehensive plan principles, just want to point out a few that we feel that we meet. The plan encourages the concentration of growth near existing and planned employment centers to minimize costly service extension. This amendment does this. Utilities are available to the site and can be provided without affecting the other properties in the area. The property is located within a preferred growth area that does encourage increased densities. And it encourages the increased densities in close proximity to retail commercial uses, providing alternatives to the automobile. A future C-Train route is planned nearby along Northwest Cary Parkway and a portion of Chapel Hill Road. When Chapel Hill Road is improved, it does include a sidewalk and a bike lane. In summary, the comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use from low to medium density residential will create a reasonable transition to the existing development in the area. The 1996 plan did not anticipate the amount of growth and the type of growth that's located in this area. And we feel that the proposed amendment also addresses the opportunity for additional housing opportunities. That is another principle of the land use plan, and that the town policies do support this request, and we ask for the board's support. I do want to point out that, as staff mentioned, we have met several times with the attorney of the property owner to the east of this proposed CPA and rezoning. We have, I think, in principle, worked out a solution to the concerns of the property owner, and hopefully when this comes back to you for the rezoning, there will no longer be a protest. But I did want you to know that we have been in contact with this gentleman and his attorney to address the issues that were mentioned at the hearing. And I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address this case? Seeing no one approach the podium, I'm going to close the public hearing and open this case up for board questions.
I just have one.
Wayne.
Regarding the property where you're having a dialogue with the attorney, could you identify where that is on this site drawing?
Certainly. Ms. Top was referring to the piece of property that's labeled with the LDR that is east of the subject property. It's kind of a wider at the top.
So it's that trapezoidal,
Yes, I was forgetting my geometry.
and it's not the one that's to the west that is elongated like this one?
No.
Okay.
It's on the east side, yes, trapezoid.
Carla?
Meredith, could you just talk briefly about the Morrisville plans for that area?
Certainly.
The big white part here where we don't have any information.
Certainly. I do have the Morrisville land use plan available. If you go to the bottom right of the Morrisville land use plan, it looks like almost like a beak or a nose sticking out. That is colored the medium yellow for low-density residential. And I did check the zoning plan right before this meeting, and the zoning designation is medium-density residential conditional use. And in Morrisville, medium-density residential that zoning designation has a cap of 7.5 dwelling units per acre. And if we're looking at the land use designation in Morrisville, their low-density residential has a cap of 4 units per acre. So it's a little more intense than what we have.
And the pinkish-looking area, is that Park West?
Yes, it is. On the west side of Cary Parkway, it's Park West, and on the east, it's the shopping center that has the Food Lion and the Stein Mart and the movie theater. And that land use designation is called Southern Activity Center. And I believe their activity centers are similar to what we call activity centers.
Okay.
Can you zoom in on that at all? I'm sorry.
I don't believe I can.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is that the area adjacent to it is same number of units per acre?
I don't know the exact plan, but it's similar or potentially higher than what's being proposed.
Other questions?
Is there a time frame for the Chapel Hill expansion of the road?
I am not sure. I'm not aware of anything at this time.
Okay.
Meredith, have we not heard in the past that part of that road improvement is dependent upon development?
In most cases, road improvement is dependent upon development.
So the schedule would kind of depend upon when people decide to do something with the dirt that is located on Chapel Hill Boulevard.
Okay,
The age-old problem that we can't get the whole thing done.
all right.
Other questions?
I have one.
Please.
Ms. Chandler, there is either one or two properties on the west side of Wilson Road that have currently a Town of Morrisville notification of rezoning. Do you have any familiarity with what is involved in those two or one cases?
I know there's a companion case that goes with the piece of property we're looking at here in Cary. Ms. Topp may have more information on that.
That land is also going through a similar process with a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning. It is owned by the same family, MS Holdings Company. The same potential developer of this site has that site under contract, similar use, similar density. The only difference is that will be approved before this one, but it is tracking. We pretty much submitted it simultaneously. Their process is just a little bit faster, but it's for the same use.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, can we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion. I move that the board forward case number 15 CPA 02 to Town Council with recommendation for approval to amend the land use plan as proposed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Oh, go ahead.
Be my guest.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second discussion.
My only, I guess my only question coming into the meeting was what Morrisville had planned for those pieces that we didn't have the information on, and it sounds like it's similar. It looks like a good transition to me, so.
I share Carol's sentiments. The area is growing, and housing options need to be available. Diverse housing options should be available, and I think this is the first step in getting this area in terms of growth and bringing in possibly more business to that particular Morrisville shopping center there. So I think this is a good use of the land as far as I can see.
Other comments? Well, I'd just like to speak as the old guy here. 7 or 8 years ago, I couldn't have imagined us doing MDR here, but it was a very different place. Every time I drive over to Park West, I'm astounded. It blows me away. And if ever there was a case where you wanted to have a little higher density that's walkable to a activity center that has really exploded, I can't think of a better case for that, and also an argument for transition. So I agree with the two motioners. I think this is a great solution. If there's no other comments, we'll call this for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 9-0. We will now move on to our first case without a public hearing. This is 15 REZ 03 1010 Road at Westlake Subdivision. Ms. Grannon.
Thank you. This is going to look familiar to most of you. This case was presented to you last month as a full rezoning proposal for approximately 55.62 acres. The subject property currently has a land use designation of low-density residential, which according to our land use plan is 1 to 3 dwelling units per acre. And typically what you're looking at in that land use plan classification is detached residential products. The applicant has a current zoning designation of Wake County R30, and the proposed zoning is residential 12 conditional use. Conditions being that the use would be limited to detached residential and neighborhood recreation, a maximum of 105 dwelling units, which equates to 2 dwelling units per acre, and an average lot size of not less than 12,500 square feet. So what is before you tonight is not an overall review of the zoning case again and all the particulars, but just a little record keeping. At your last meeting, there was a number of concerns expressed about some of the conditions that had and had not been offered. Recommendation for approval failed by a vote of 4-4. So there is no recommendation on the case going to council, and the concerns that were expressed are going to be presented to council in the staff report. But what we need from the board tonight is a finding as to whether or not the request is consistent with the land use plan. And that's really all that's before you this evening, but I'm available for any questions that you have.
So let me make sure I have this clear in my mind. Current land use plan is low-density residential. The proposal is for low-density residential.
The proposal is for R12 with a condition that the density would be 2 dwelling units per acre.
Which
R12,
fits the LD.
well, actually, the LDO R12 would be 3.6, but they've proposed a condition to cap it at no more than 2. So by the zoning condition proposed, it would be low-density residential.
Okay, so what we have to find is what we already know.
Basically formalizing it in the form of a written finding that can then be presented to council along with the no recommendation for approval. Because what council will see is that you find that it's consistent with the land use plan, but they will see all those concerns and the information about those that supported the request. They'll see that information summarized in the staff report as well. But this is a technicality to be consistent with the general statutes that requires the board to make a finding. And with that finding, they also make a recommendation. It was a perfect storm situation. We've not frequently had an even number of members on the board and a tie vote, so we were not prepared to say, time out, let's break this into 2 separate steps, make your finding, and then make your recommendation. So this is just a little cleanup to get that finding in place.
Thank you. We have questions here.
I think you just answered it, but it's the result of an oversight on our part from the last meeting.
Correct, and ours as well, in not saying, let's just break this into 2 steps. We had never had that occur before with a tie vote.
So if I may, sort of separate from this, if there should be in the future, and I know this is sort of a new procedure for us, but if there should be in the near future, or the distant future for that matter, a recommendation to not approve something, we should still take the second step of deciding on whether or not it's consistent with the land use plan,
Correct.
independent of that.
Correct. Typically, sometimes the recommendation is all rolled in together. Frequently, a motion will be made because something is consistent with the land use plan, then the recommendation to approve follows, and we assume that both things have been found to be consistent and a recommendation for approval. This was a little bit unusual, but not something that we won't see again. There are times that there is something consistent with the land use plan, but there's still a feeling of discomfort or not enough zoning conditions put in place that the board may still not feel comfortable making a recommendation. So sure, that could happen again in the future.
So we can have something that is consistent with the plan, but still not voted in.
That's correct. And that's pretty much what will happen in this case. If you find it is consistent with the low-density land use plan designation, your concerns are still going to be documented, and there still will be no recommendation for approval because of those concerns.
May I ask one last thing?
Oh, please.
Not to re-adjudicate the whole case, but just to be accurate here, there are no changes to the proposed zoning conditions from the last time we...
Not at this time.
Thank
It's
you.
possible there may be when it goes to the town council. We're discussing that with the applicant because they're aware of your concerns.
Right.
But at this time, the changes are not official.
In which case, if the changes are significant, the council might send it back to us. And then we will have ruled on the land use appropriateness and have to reconsider the rezoning. So do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I move that the board forward case 15 REZ 03 to the town council with the finding that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I mean,
I got to have something to say.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I think our findings were still valid at the last meeting, and, you know, there are a lot of things that are consistent with the comprehensive plan. I think our job is to figure out the best fit within the comprehensive plan for a piece of land. And so, you know, this is a technicality. I'm comfortable saying it is consistent. So,
Thank you.
Likewise, I feel very comfortable with this. In fact, the proposal is for a lower density than is allowed by the land use plan, so quite obviously, low density versus low density. I see it as a no-brainer.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving me something to say.
Yes, sir.
There being no more comments, I'm going to call this for vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. Opposed, that motion carries unanimously. And we will then go to our final case of the evening, which is 15 REZ 09, and that's 2495 O'Kelly Chapel Road. Ms. Bierman.
Good evening. This is a request to rezone about 2.6 acres at 2495 O'Kelly Chapel Road. In this case, the applicant is the town of Cary. A fire station or other public safety purpose facility is tentatively proposed there. This is a vicinity map. I would also point out with this, there is a owner-initiated annexation petition that is tracking concurrently with this case as well. And here you can see the site on O'Kelly Chapel Road. It is surrounded basically by Stonewater and Amberley PDD's plan unit developments. The existing zoning on the site is R1 in Chatham County, and the proposed zoning is R40. The land use plan designation for this area is LDR, low-density residential. Use for public facilities such as this is consistent with the land use plan as well as permitted in the requested zoning district. This shows the site, the property is within the joint Chatham-Cary land use plan, and you can see with the red star where the site is located in relation to those boundaries. There are no stream buffers or floodways shown on Cary's GIS maps on the property. There is a proposed street side trail on O'Kelly Chapel Road that is shown on the opposite side of the road. This shows O'Kelly Chapel Road and Yates Store Road as major thoroughfares. There was one speaker at the public hearing. The speaker was actually a resident of subdivision in Chatham County near the property and just requested that consideration be given for fire protection, mutual aid type agreements within the near areas in Chatham County. Several council members did generally express support for that notion, and then we followed up with the fire department and then found that they could support with supplemental fire and first responder activities. And this is done through a mutual aid agreement that would be coordinated with Chatham County. And that concludes staff's comments. They'll be available for questions.
Questions? I just have one quick question. I've been harboring this one ever since the original town council meeting. If we extend fire protection to folks in Chatham County that aren't in Cary. Did they pay for that additional fire protection in any fashion, or is that just something we're doing because we're very good people in Cary?
Well, typically, there's a mutual aid agreement so that where you have a jurisdictional boundary, there can be an agreement made between the jurisdictions so that, services can be provided more seamlessly. There may be some situations where they have some emergency responders close by with their facilities that could, mutual aid that could go back and forth. And that's something that is worked out as with an agreement, with the agreement of both jurisdictions. Whether or not there's, any specific arrangements related to cost back and forth with that, I don't have specific information on that.
Thank you. Other questions?
I got a curiosity question.
Go for it.
You may not know the answer to this. Does the town plan on building a fire station soon there?
That is one thing that's being looked at with the property. That's one of the reasons for pursuing this particular piece is to look into the potential for a fire station there. I'm not sure, I don't know that that's something that's specifically funded and planned at the moment, but in terms of future planning and needs and trying to locate resources in places where they're needed, that's the rationale for the town pursuing that particular location.
The PDD that it sits in the middle of, that's still part of Amberley?
Well, there's actually two. There's the Stonewater PDD, which I think is to the north, and then the Amberley to the south. I can't tell you which one of these property lines forms the boundary of that, but they're actually two different planned development districts, and then this area is in neither one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Other questions? Seeing none, it's time for a motion.
I will make a motion.
Carly,
Let
you're
me-
carrying the water
You
today.
guys are, I know. Everybody jumps to second it. I move that the board forward case number 15 REZ09 to Town Council with a recommendation for approval, as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans and is reasonable and in the public interest for the reasons set forth in the staff report and presentation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Discussion?
No, this looks fine. I mean, obviously, a fire station, which is the kind of the proposed use.
To give you a
Is-
sensitivity here, do you know how dumb I look walking up to that? I have absolutely nothing to tell you.
They won't even ask, I promise. No, I think that's a good use of this. There's a lot of, development in this area and, public use, fire station, whatever they decide to put there, I assume, will be there to support the community. So it looks good.
I second what Carla said, because there's a lot of open space there, so that just tells us that there's going to be a lot more development. So I think a fire station or something like that is a no-brainer.
Excellent. Other comments? All those,
I also support it because as our fire stations are usually our first responders, and we have some people that might be needing extra response in that area. So I think it's a good idea to have an extra fire station up there.
very good point.
And it's also sort of a no harm, no foul R40. So if it doesn't become a fire station, we can't go put something in there that doesn't come before us again. I assume that's what R1 is too with Chatham County.
The R1 in Chatham County is similar to the R40. I would say, in terms of the town bringing this forward, I did want to share the intended use. you can see in your staff report, however, it's not a conditional use case, so any uses that are allowed in R40 could be placed there, and those are listed in your staff report.
But I will observe, in general, we can trust the town of Cary.
I think they're generally trustworthy.
They're fairly trustworthy on this, and I got to tell you, I like this one because rezoning something and purchasing the property in anticipation of future needs is usually a much cheaper way to do something than waiting until the land becomes more expensive, and we're clawing back in to catch up. So I applaud you for doing this one. If there's nobody else that has something to say, I'll call this to vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And I believe that ends our agenda tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll jump to that one.
Sorry, Carly, you don't get to carry water on that
A second.
one. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I believe we have a perfect record tonight. We unanimously approved everything. Which is good for you.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.